Imagine for a moment that the very blueprint of American democracy, the structure the founders put together, has this hidden flaw. Like a blind spot, maybe?
Yeah.
One big enough for a whole different kind of power to just, sneak in and start reshaping things.
Yeah, turning a government of the people into something else entirely. Captured, maybe.
Exactly. And that's really the core idea we're digging into today, isn't it? It comes from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's book, Captured: The Corporate Infiltration of American Democracy.
It's a powerful book.
Right.
Whitehouse doesn't just speculate. He lays out pretty meticulously how he sees corporate power systematically getting inside, infiltrating and compromising democratic institutions.
And his background matters here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being a U.S. senator, a former federal prosecutor, it gives his perspective some real weight.
Definitely. So his main argument starts with what he calls an original oversight in the Constitution, a blind spot about corporate power.
Meaning the founders were so focused on, say, government tyranny or individual rights.
Right. They were dealing with kings and state power. They didn't really foresee these massive corporate entities emerging with the kind of influence they have today. Influence that can rival the government's own.
So this oversight, this constitutional vulnerability, Whitehouse argues that's the door corporations walked through. That's how they started to gain so much control over a system meant to serve the public.
Yeah, and he breaks it down into 5 main ways, 5 key mechanisms he believes they've used to achieve this capture, like levers they pull.
Okay, let's take the first one he identifies, this idea of dark money election attacks.
Right. And what's interesting here is that it's often the threat of these big, anonymous, multi-million-dollar campaigns that does the work.
Not necessarily the attack itself.
Sometimes, yeah. Just knowing that some hidden group could drop $1 million attacking you if you step out of line. That's incredibly intimidating for politicians. It's cheaper than actually running the ads, too.
And the secrecy is key, isn't it? The lack of accountability.
Absolutely. And Citizens United, that 2010 Supreme Court decision, really blew the doors open for this.
By saying corporate money is basically free speech.
Exactly. Which allowed almost unlimited and often untraceable corporate money into elections. Whitehouse argues this fundamentally changed the game, making that threat of spending against politicians who don't toe the corporate line incredibly potent.
It really makes you question, how much your individual vote counts when it's against these massive unseen financial forces.
Which leads us actually right into the second mechanism, the capture of the courts, the federal judiciary, and especially, he argues, the Supreme Court.
This wasn't accidental, according to Whitehouse.
No, not at all. He traces it back decades, specifically pinpointing a confidential memo from 1971, the Powell Memo.
Yes, the Powell Memo, written by Lewis Powell just before he went out to the Supreme Court himself. That laid out a kind of strategy, right?
A comprehensive blueprint, really. Yeah. Powell saw the free enterprise system as being under attack from universities, the media, activists.
And he called for corporate America to fight back. Systematically.
Precisely. And crucially, he singled out the judiciary. He called it potentially the most important instrument for social, economic, and political change.
Wow.
Yeah. So he urged corporations to invest heavily, fund legal challenges, groom potential judges, set up business-friendly legal foundations, coordinate through groups like the Chamber of Commerce.
Not a long game.
A very successful long game, Whitehouse argues, resulting in a Supreme Court that time and again seems to rule in ways that favor corporate interests, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly.
And we see echoes of that today, like with the recent overturning of the Chevron doctrine.
That's a huge example, yeah. Chevron deference basically meant courts would generally defer to agency expertise when laws were ambiguous, getting rid of it. Well, that's a big win for corporations wanting less regulation, less agency power over them.
And when you weaken regulations, that affects everyone, right? The air you breathe, the products you buy.
Absolutely. These aren't abstract legal theories. They have real-world consequences for your daily life.
Okay, so that's dark money threats and judicial capture. What's the third mechanism?
Regulatory capture. Basically, getting control of the very government agencies that are supposed to regulate the industries.
How does that work? Is it just lobbying?
It's more insidious than that, usually. It's about shaping the agency from the inside out, getting industry-friendly people appointed to key jobs, funding academic studies that, surprise, surprise, support deregulation, and, of course, the classic revolving door.
Regulators leave their government jobs and go work for the companies they used to oversee.
Exactly. Or vice versa. It creates a culture where the agency becomes too cozy with the industry it's meant to police.
And Whitehouse gives examples.
Oh, yeah. Environmental regulation is a major one, he details. How fossil fuel companies, for instance, have managed to delay or water down climate regulations for decades, even though the scientific consensus was clear.
So the agency meant to protect the environment ends up not doing its job effectively.
Or at least its effectiveness is severely compromised by industry influence. And when that happens, think about the implications for, well, your health, your safety, the environment you live in. It's profound.
Okay, number 4.
Undermining the civil jury system. Whitehouse calls the jury trial the Constitution's last bastion for ordinary citizens.
Meaning it's where a regular person could take on a powerful corporation and potentially win.
Exactly. A democratic check on corporate power. But he argues it's been systematically weakened over decades by corporate lobbying efforts, often framed as tort reform.
Tort reform, what does that actually involve?
Things like putting caps on the damages juries can award, even for serious negligence, forcing cases out of open court and into private arbitration, which often favors the corporation. Basically, making it harder and less worthwhile for individuals to sue.
And this has had a real impact.
A huge impact. Whitehouse points out that today, less than 1% of federal civil cases actually go to a jury trial. Think about that.
Wow. So if you were harmed by a company's negligence, your chance of getting justice in front of a jury is much smaller now.
Dramatically smaller. It really changes the balance of power.
All right, that brings us to the 5th mechanism.
Creating a corporate alternate reality. This is about shaping public perception, manufacturing doubt, promoting narratives that serve corporate interests, especially on issues like public health and climate change.
Like the tobacco industry playbook.
Precisely like the tobacco playbook. Whitehouse details how fossil fuel companies, for example, funded climate denial campaigns for years, creating doubt about the science.
Even though their own scientists knew about the risks.
Decades ago, yes.
Yeah.
Their own internal documents confirmed it back in the 70s. But publicly, they funded contrarian scientists, set up fake grassroots organizations, pushed stories emphasizing uncertainty, a massive disinformation campaign.
It's quite something. It makes you pause and think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much of what you believe about certain big issues might actually be shaped by these, well, carefully crafted corporate stories?
It's a sobering thought. And, as we're processing all these layers, sometimes stepping back is useful. Just a quick note for everyone listening. You are experiencing a unique two-voice AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM for deeper, more dynamic book analysis.
Right. And for more analysis like this, designed to kind of spur reflection, you might want to check out Mindful Moments over on our YouTube channel. It focuses on AI book analysis aimed at inspiring that kind of rational thought.
Good point. So, back to Whitehouse's argument, he uses climate change as this sort of ultimate case study, weaving together all 5 mechanisms.
So you had the fossil fuel companies using dark money threats against politicians who supported climate action.
You had them funding legal challenges and pushing for judges who would weaken environmental laws. That's judicial capture.
Capturing the regulatory agencies like the EPA to slow things down.
Right. Undermining the ability of people harmed by pollution or climate impacts to sue effectively through tort reform.
And all underpinned by that massive disinformation campaign, the alternate reality, saying the science wasn't settled.
Exactly. All 5 levers working together. Whitehouse argues this coordinated strategy built on that Powell Memo blueprint is why we saw decades of delay on meaningful climate action, despite the mounting evidence. It shows how these systemic weaknesses can be exploited.
One really crucial point Whitehouse makes is that this isn't just about one political party, is it? He sees it as a structural problem.
Yeah, that's key. While, one party might seem more overtly aligned with corporate interests on the surface, he argues the influence of money, the mechanisms of capture, they affect everyone in Washington regardless of party.
So corporations don't necessarily need loyalty to a party.
They just need their issues prioritized, their interests protected. And the system, as Whitehouse describes it, has been kind of rewired to ensure that happens, often regardless of who is nominally in charge. It helps explain why sometimes even administrations you'd expect to challenge corporate power don't or can't effectively.
How is the book received generally?
Mostly quite positively, especially for the level of detail and his insider perspective. The New Yorker praised it for spelling out that corporate influence across many issues.
But there were some criticisms.
A few, yeah. Kirkus Reviews, for example, felt that sometimes it read a bit like a Democrat's attack on Republicans, even though the problems it describes, like money in politics, really are bipartisan in their impact.
Which Whitehouse himself seems to acknowledge. that the effects cut across party lines.
Right. And looking back, since the book was published, a lot of his warnings feel, well, pretty relevant today, don't they?
Increasingly so, unfortunately.
Right.
Recent Supreme Court decisions, the continued flood of dark money, the ongoing battles over climate policy, it seems to validate much of his core thesis.
So at the end of the day, the book's message is sort of twofold. It's alarming, definitely.
Yeah, laying out how deeply corporate interests might be embedded in the system.
But it's also meant to be empowering. Whitehouse argues this capture isn't, inevitable. It's not irreversible.
By understanding how it works, these 5 mechanisms we've discussed, the idea is that citizens can actually start to push back.
Exactly. Identify where the influence is happening, work to restore democratic accountability, and try to make sure the government serves the public interest, not just private profits. So the book is both a warning, a pretty urgent one, and maybe a kind of roadmap for reclaiming that democracy.
It leaves you with a pretty challenging thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If these systems, the ones designed to protect all of us, have been sort of quietly rewired, then how can your choices, what you buy, who you vote for, what you advocate for, how can they become part of rewiring it back?
That's the question, isn't it? Food for thought.
Definitely. And for more resources to keep exploring these kinds of complex topics, don't forget Mindful Moments and our podcasts.
And if you found this discussion valuable today, please do subscribe to our feed. That way you won't miss out on future explorations.
Yeah, and share this conversation. Share it with anyone you think might benefit from, a deeper look at these really crucial issues.
And if you want to go straight to the source, delve into Senator Whitehouse's arguments yourself, you can find a link to purchase the book in our description.
Above all, keep asking questions.
Right.
Keep digging for clarity. And always, always think critically.